The hero's journey is a tale as old as time. It's the story of an unexpected person doing an unexpected thing. It's an underdog going on an uncomfortable quest and facing difficult decisions with absolutely no idea how their story is going to play out. They grapple with their flaws and face their fears, and ultimately it's a journey of growth and change. The character doesn't start out as a hero. They aren't fundamentally brave or extraordinarily fearless. They become heroes because of the journeys they take. The challenges the character faces transform them into a hero, and they end up in a place they never imagined they'd be. Art is a never-ending journey. It's a journey that little by little changes us. And I think we can intentionally take ourselves on little side quests to become better artists. So that's what I did. Now, I'm a control freak. Not in every area of life, but when it comes to art, it's a bit of a problem. And if we're being honest, I think many, if not most other artists are probably control freaks too. We have an idea in mind and we want to see it come to life. Now, some artists are more controlling than others. There's the 57-step planners who create pages of thumbnails to find the right composition, develop color key after color key to fine-tune the palette, and spend hours noodling over the same minute detail of their piece. And then there's some artists who have an idea in mind, but are a little bit less OCD about meeting it exactly. I fall more into the category of the first artist. Not quite that rigid, but fairly close. Is there anything wrong with that? No, not necessarily, but that's not really the artist that I want to be. The hero, if you will, that I want to be. I want to be more open-minded to letting the creative process go where it wants to exploring the unknown with my work and letting, as Bob Ross would say, happy accidents happen. Now, this is something that's been bouncing around in my brain for quite a while now, and I finally had the guts to take a leap of faith on a painting and go on a side quest. I shared this journal entry in one of my newsletters, but I wanted to share it with you guys here too. Today, I'm beginning a new painting with a little bit less than a plan. Yes, there's a clean sketch, a rough value comp, and a few key colors in mind, but I want to challenge myself to embrace more spontaneity, to relinquish my control over the creative process, to venture into what is risky and uncomfortable, and to learn to be okay with it, to find magic in it. I have millions more mistakes to make in this life, and I'm sure at least a few are going to be made during this process. But I hope and pray that maybe some magic will be made in it too by stepping into the unknown and trusting my artistic intuition. So I challenged myself to intentionally throw off my routine and do something different. My biggest art goal this year is to reconnect with my art through this 20 illustrations challenge. And if you don't know about this challenge, you can watch the Escaping My Comfort Zone video from the beginning of this year. There's a link down in the description if you want to check it out. So the goal is to enjoy art again, to explore my imagination, and to make something of my own. I want to grow as an artist, and growth never comes from being stagnant. Now, if you're perfectly satisfied with your art and don't want to stray away from the process you've developed, that's totally fine. If growth isn't a priority for you and you simply want art to be a place of comfort, then by all means, keep it up. But if you want to grow as an artist too, then you're gonna have to switch some things up a bit. Albert Einstein said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If I want to explore my imagination and learn to trust my creative instincts and really grow as an artist, then I have to let go of being so rigidly in control of everything and do something different.
Keep myself on my toes, as it were.
All throughout history, we see cases of businesses and churches and people just doing the same thing over and over again because,
well, that's the way we've always done it.
Often with no real reason for doing it that way. I had started a color key for this illustration because that's the way I've always done it, but I had a thought after swatching a few colors. Who says I have to make a color key? What amazing things could happen if I started the painting process without one? Maybe my intuition would take me somewhere better than a color key could. Now, notice in the journal entry that I said a little bit less than a plan. I had still done some thumbnailing and developed a more polished sketch and a simple value key. I didn't want to take out every guardrail. The goal wasn't to put myself in a place of no boundaries at all, but rather to remove some of the boundaries that sometimes hold me back from exploring. And exploring is uncomfortable. Of course, it's exciting, but anytime we explore something we don't know, there's always going to be a little bit of fear there. And I'm starting to learn that that's not a bad thing. I think it's important for us to be a little bit uncomfortable in our art practice sometimes. And let me tell you, it was plenty uncomfortable creating this illustration, even with a finished sketch and value key. There were so many moments of me going, but do I actually know what I'm doing? Am I really that confident in my understanding of color theory and color mixing?
I kind of want to paint a yellow sky, but is that going to look weird? This scene is supposed to take place after a rainstorm, but can I really paint a scene with that kind of atmosphere without a guide? What if this goes totally wrong and I'm left with a completely hideous painting that will never see the light of day again?
The illustration ending in disaster was a possibility, and I had to remind myself over and over and over again that that possibility was okay. There was nothing stopping me from simply starting over on a new piece of paper if this one went south. One of the things I'm learning, struggling sometimes to learn this year, is that there's nothing shameful in failure. It's an equally important part of each of our artistic journeys. Yeah, it's uncomfortable, but it's nothing to be ashamed about. I love stories. Movies, books, musicals, TV shows, you name it. And in every story, the hero has those moments of questioning whether or not they're going in the right direction, if they should give up and start over, if what they're doing is pointless, if they're even qualified for the quest they're on. They take wrong turns and make mistakes, and those mistakes, in a roundabout way, help them get where they need to go and accomplish the quest they set out on. Let us all remember Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. That kid had absolutely no idea what he was doing for like 94% of the book. The hero isn't a hero because they don't make mistakes or aren't afraid of the unknown, or even because they know where they're going. They're a hero because they continued on in spite of those mistakes and fears and not knowing where they were going to end up. I'm not at all trying to call myself a hero here, I'm just an artist trying to make cool paintings. But I think most artists can probably relate to that hero's journey. Unless you have the biggest self-esteem in the world, you question yourself too. You question if you're capable, if you're going the right direction, if the path you're on is going to end in an ugly mess of colors splashed on a piece of paper. You feel the fear of doing something you haven't done before and wonder if it's even worth it. And we do go the wrong direction sometimes. Every hero does. Paintings reach that point of no return and you start over on a new one. But sometimes you try a new technique and it becomes your favorite, or you use a different brush and it adds a whole new dimension to your work. Or you go in without a color key and learn to trust in your abilities and intuition. Art is a journey, and I don't think it's for us to know where that journey ends. Our job is simply to keep creating and discovering and taking wrong turns to find the right one. Having those moments of questioning ourselves and making the choice to continue on anyways. I want to challenge you this week to take yourself on a side quest. Find something in your own art practice that you want to improve or learn and leap into it. As Elise Myers would say, do it scared. The fear of trying something new and potentially being bad at it isn't going to go away. But the only way to grow as an artist is to meet the fear head on and do it anyways. So let me know down in the comments what side quest you're going to take. Now let's chat a little bit about this illustration and why it's one of my favorites this year. Now, like the dance theme, I wasn't super keen on working on the trains theme. When it comes to anything even remotely vehicular like cars or trucks or trains, I just don't really care. Now don't get me wrong, I love the shapes of steam engines and the fins on a 57 Chevy, but when it comes to art, I generally have no interest in drawing them. But once again, this challenge is about breaking out of the
"well, I don't do this because I never have"
mindset. Challenging myself to use my imagination to turn every single theme into something that I love, even if it's not something that I would typically choose to paint or draw. So I began to think about things that I do love and connect to that I can maybe apply to this theme. I had seen something about people turning old train cars into different things, like little cafes and hangout spots, and I thought about bits and bobbles. What if they have like a secret hideout in an old train? So I began exploring that train of thought.
Pun absolutely intended.
But I had a bit of a problem. How could I fit a train into the Marquee Meadow? Trains don't typically run straight through forests like this. Now there's a particular aesthetic that I am always drawn to. Of course, I love the whimsy of cottagecore, the mystery of steampunk. Y'all know I am obsessed with cluttercore. But there's this one kind of hauntingly beautiful aesthetic that always strikes my fancy. So my sister and I are obsessed with a movie. And this movie greatly influenced my decision to love and embrace this particular aesthetic. Now here's the thing. Objectively, this is not a great movie. The acting is subpar at best, the storyline has some pretty major plot holes, but it's one of our go-to movie night films nonetheless. It's called Secret of Moonacre, and it is one of the most beautiful films that I have ever seen. From the costume designs to the set dressing, it's just really nice to look at. It's like whimsy meets Victorian steampunk. So one of the things you should know about my sister and I is that we overanalyze every single movie that we watch. We pause like every 4 minutes to discuss far too deeply the storyline, the characters, the designs, completely unrelated topics, everything. I'm sure this would be extremely annoying to anyone else trying to watch the movie. But there's one particular room that we always gush over in this movie, and that's the piano room. It's this old dusty room with these large arched and dirty windows with like overgrown vining plants. It's got cracked stone walls and this sort of melancholy lighting. The phrase we use to describe it is tainted elegance. It has this essence of being grand and gorgeous, but it's a bit forgotten and kind of run down. And for me, that kind of run down look just makes it even more beautiful. There's a lot of beauty to me in imperfect things. Things that have seen a lot of years and have been affected by those years. Like barns that are swallowed up by overgrown plants, or moss-covered bridges, or abandoned train stations. Man-made things kind of overtaken by nature and time. It's a very juxtaposing aesthetic, and it never ceases to make me smile. There's a bittersweetness to forgotten things, but there's a loveliness to it also. So I decided to run with that aesthetic for this illustration, and it ended up helping me unlock another little piece of the story of the Marquee Meadow. It wasn't always a meadow. Maybe it was a little village, or even a small city. I'm not sure, I haven't discovered that part yet. But there was a little train station that ran just outside of it. It's long since been forgotten. Both the station and the train itself are overgrown with plants and weathered by time and atmosphere. Even the tracks are covered in moss, and the seats have become a home to all different kinds of plant life. But after every rainstorm, Bits and Bobbles pack a picnic lunch and visit the old train. So I tried some new things with this piece. I tried trusting my intuition on the colors. I spent a lot of time watching Ogygia?
I don't know how to pronounce that.
Anyways, I watched this lady's video on painting Studio Ghibli style plants to learn how to create better plant shapes in my own illustrations. I also revisited some old techniques that I'd completely forgotten I loved, such as painting highlights into the wet paint of a shadow color. So the area under the train where the wheels are is mostly in shadow, so I decided to let go of fully painting every wheel and instead let them recede into the shadows. I used my highlight colors on the wet paint to quickly sweep in some highlights to give the wheels a little bit of form, and ended up just kind of leaving them as they were. I also explored more of this tainted elegance aesthetic by going in towards the end to add cracks and rust to the train. Is it a perfect painting? No. I don't really think any painting is ever gonna be perfect. But this piece taught me to kind of find beauty in the mistakes, just like I find beauty in forgotten things and places. This piece wasn't fully planned out, and I honestly think it's better for that. The process was exciting and scary and fun. I really enjoyed it, and I am so happy with how the illustration turned out. This is the first of my illustrations for the challenge this year that actually featured Bits and Bobbles, and I'm so happy that I finally painted them in one of these. The more I sketch them and paint them and discover more of their story and the story of the Marquee Meadow, the more I'm inspired to keep painting and discovering. There's going to be another few Bits and Bobbles focused illustrations for this challenge coming up over the next couple of months, so be on the lookout for those. If you're interested in seeing more of my art as I'm making it, then definitely consider joining our Cozy Club over on Patreon. The community there gets early access to what I'm working on, occasional tutorials, and even gets to be part of the decision-making process in what direction I go in with my illustrations sometimes. If you enjoy my art and still want to get a dash of whimsy on the weeks that I don't post a YouTube video, then signing up for my newsletter is a really great way to stay up to date and chat about art and see some little snippets of my work. And finally, for the Bits and Bobbles fans, I've put together a few themed mystery bags in my shop. where you get a 5x7 bits and or baubles print, and 3 bits and baubles stickers. Y'all have been loving the mystery bags. They've been selling like hotcakes, so I thought a themed bag would be a really fun idea. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed watching me paint this illustration, and I hope this video inspired you to do something a little bit different in your own creative practice. And I don't think this applies just to artists either. You can grow in anything by changing up your process. Trying a new recipe if you're a baker, or trying a new sport if you're an athlete, trying a different genre if you're a writer. There's so much magic hidden in the unknown, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable exploring it. Anywho, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye guys!